SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Join the growing crowd at Mid-Delta Online Auction. Download their app by searching Mid-Delta Auction to bid on tractors, trailers, heavy equipment, golf carts, and more. Download the app today or call Will Jeffcoat at 662-299-2414 for more details for the first Tuesday of every month auction in Greenwood.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this Hump Day. Man, yeah, we have made it. So, sad news to report this morning. You guys know by now, country music star, legend, Dolly Parton passed away yesterday at 80 years old. Cause of death, all they've said, Rhino, to this point, is cancer. No other details like a short bout with the disease. So, I mean, one could certainly speculate on what that was, but we shall not do that. That's, I think, all that's been released at this point, right, Rhino? No other details. So, man, she kept it fairly secret, did she not, that she was sick? I never heard anything about that.
I mean, she, about the closest she got to openly admitting that her age and her health were starting to take a toll was when she started wearing gloves to hide her hands, and then she stopped touring.
Okay.
Because you remember Marty Stewart had that special concert with her for the benefit of the Country Music Hall of Fame in Philadelphia not too long ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was one of the last times she performed for a paying audience.
Well, she was an extremely popular figure and made a lot of music and starred in movies that entertained a lot of people. And I think you could say, Rhino, she was unique in that she had a very strong sense of humor, in addition to being a very talented musical artist. So she had a diverse skill set of art and performance, and she will certainly be missed. I mean, you almost kind of think, I guess in the more modern times, she as the face of Nashville to a great extent. Her theme park, Dolly World, was still is hugely successful. She will certainly be missed. Dolly Parton, 80 years old. So we got a lot of news to get to you today. We've got Representative Robert Johnson from the Mississippi House of Representatives. He, of course, the minority leader in the House. He will be joining us at 11:05. It's Andrea Sanders, Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services, at 12:05. Quick shout out to the good folks in Perry County, Mississippi, headed down there last night. They just launched a brand new Perry County Republican Executive Committee and got that constituted. I was down there with state GOP folks. Our chairman, Mike Hurst, vice chairman, Leslie Davis, executive director, Rance Bilbo, GOP State Secretary Pete Perry. Had a nice turnout down in Perry County. shout out to Congressman Mike Ezell from Mississippi's 4th District. He was in attendance as well as Representative Elliott Birch. He represents the area. It was well done. Short and sweet, to the point. Got the officers and the committee folks named and got the Constitution, the bylaws actually approved. So, good stuff. And welcome to the Republican Party from a county organizational perspective. It's kind of hard to believe, Rhino, that we still have some counties in the state. They don't really have a formally organized organization like that. But given the turnout last night, I'd say that was in good shape there. Perry County, not a terribly populated county. You know where it is, down there in the southeast part of the state, around Hattiesburg, Petal. So enjoyed the trip down there. When we returned, got to tell you, we got a little shaken up by, this was late at night. We were in the GOP headquarters parking lot. An individual that was just walking on the street there looked like he was up to no good. And I had a friend that works for Capitol Police take care of the driving for us last night. Off duty, completely legal, just up and up. Want to be sure that that's understood. Driving my vehicle. And as we were driving away, I noticed this individual walking right on the sidewalk there, adjacent to the GOP headquarters, which sits on a corner. And I noticed that his hand was cupped. I thought maybe he had a weapon. And he did, but it wasn't a firearm. It was a hatchet. That's weird. I could see the silver, thinking that maybe that was a gun. And then when I looked more closely, so my guy got out and had a little chat with him. But he ended up moving on out to Smith Park. But my guy said he felt like he was probably up to no good. But there's, I guess, some observation by law enforcement that people that are looking to do no good are just being dropped off. I didn't know that, being imported in here to cause problems. What the heck is that all about? Am I misrepresenting that, or what's going on there?
No, I mean, a few generations back, it was kind of, I don't know if that was ever written down, but it was pretty much standard procedure for some municipalities to pick up vagrants or loiterers or homeless or miscreants and drop them off in another county or another municipality.
Yeah.
That kind of went the way of the dodo in the 90s and the 2000s. But depending on who you ask as to whether or not that still takes place, it doesn't just take place in the back of a cop car anymore. Now it's a little bit more discreet.
Okay. Well, shout out to my Capitol Police officer, I'd say the one who escorted us last night, for making sure we were safe. And he followed up with me, by the way, Rhino, after he dropped me off. And then this morning he called, make sure we were all good and safe. And I said, yeah, other than just kind of being freaked out a little bit, and I kept thinking, well, man, what if he'd not been there at that point? And he just said he thought the guy was high, I guess, for lack of a better term, under the influence of something. How about that? And said it's unpredictable. And I think, and I know you have some experiences with your dad, I think that's probably common in police work when you're confronting an individual like this. You just don't know. And that's what's hard about it, is it not? It's like you're not talking to a reasonable, rational person here. And he made a comment.
Especially if they're high on something. Because, I mean, you can be high on one thing and you're going to move at a slower pace and your reaction time is going to be a little dulled. You can be on another thing and you're hyperactive.
Okay.
You can be on a third thing and it makes you feel like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, to the point where you'll literally take bullets and your brain will keep going. Your body's going, stop that, and your brain's going, no!
Yeah. And that's,
so, yeah, it's a grab bag.
Well, I'll just say I'm glad he was there and with us. And this is about 11:30 downtown. I also noticed 3 individuals that were laid down sleeping on the little porch there at Galloway Methodist Church, which is in the shadows of the state capitol. Homeless people, I guess. You've probably seen there's here in Jackson an announcement from city government to tackle the homeless problem. And I saw 2 others as we were driving out that were just laid out at the front doors of other buildings. So it's certainly a problem, even in a town the size of Jackson. We typically associate that problem with the larger cities where you see just hordes, honestly, of homeless out and about the streets, and without, especially in the blue cities and states, because they seem to be more welcoming and not willing to take any action. It's becoming a problem to an extent in Jackson, and you don't see that during the day like you do at night. I think I don't ever see anybody laid out on the steps of the church there. It's right catty corner to the Secretary of State's office as well. Maybe actually behind it, now that I think about it. Rhino bumping us out with a little Dolly Parton here. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets the traffic starts jumping. Folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. Barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. You just use your mind.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We are pleased that you have decided to join us today. So on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, Jerry in Pontotoc says, Dolly was the epitome of first class. Agree, Jerry. Talking about this little situation we had last night when we returned from Perry County at GOP headquarters. Worked in Memphis is on the C Spire text line. For a few years, we would see West Memphis PD come across the bridge and drop them off in Memphis. Shortly after, you'd see Memphis PD return the favor back across the bridge. Wow. Joel from Tupelo, they say one of the reasons we have the homeless problem that we do have in Tupelo is because other cities are buying Greyhound tickets for homeless and sending them to us. I mean, that's been reported, is it not, Rhino? Not just in Mississippi, but across the nation, where homeless folks are being transported to other areas, especially those who tend to be more friendly and sort of ignore it, don't take action. I mean, it's virtually ruined San Francisco as an example. What was it, a few years ago when Biden visited El Paso and they cleaned up the streets or something? Made them all go somewhere else to tidy it up or something to that effect, as I recall.
Yeah, the city and state pitched in to welcome the sitting president to come visit, while in California they cleaned up their act so that Xi from China could come visit.
Yeah, I reckon you're right. That's right. It was to try to show off to Xi Jinping. I forgot about that. Amanda from Pike County, according to Dave this morning, New Orleans is buying train tickets and putting them on the train to Macomb. I mean, does this violate any laws? I mean, can you do that? I guess that's perfectly legal, right? So I'm not sure what the solution to that is, other than maybe the Macomb folks, Amanda, need to have a talk with the New Orleans folks that are responsible for that are driving that. And I guess they'll just say, too bad, we can do that, right? Golly. Incredible. Jeez.
Yeah, as long as they're not forcibly putting them on that bus, then, I don't really see how. I mean, you could raise a legal stink for the misuse of tax dollars because the money's got to come from somewhere, but that would be something the local people would have to raise an alarm on because it'd be their tax dollars, and
that's true.
They seem to be the ones benefiting from ridding themselves of the homeless population, so I don't see anybody pulling that trigger.
Mose, he repeated the same. He said Dave's talked about an officer in New Orleans who was the sole member of her department, a one-person department. Her job, take homeless people to the train station and buy them a ticket, send them to Macomb. So,
like I said, depending on who you ask, it's a lot more subtle than just putting them in the back of a cop car and driving them, dropping them off.
Yeah. So that certainly aligns with what Amanda from Pike County said with respect to Macomb, Pike County, that these are homeless, shall we say homeless immigrants from New Orleans, essentially, that are being transported into Mississippi. Oh, that's nice. I guess you're right. We could spend money to send them back, right? So it'd just be a tit for tat, a contest of where they land.
And the only real winner, Greyhound.
That's exactly right. Gee whiz. Gary in the Berg says, keep some bear spray handy. Works on bears, people, and golfers. Could they be charged with human trafficking?
Not if they willingly get on the bus.
Okay.
Like if you say, hey, here's a bus ticket.
It makes sense.
You can either get on the bus or you can go to jail. Because they can take you to jail for any number of things, for at least detain you. So it's your option. Do I go to jail or do I get on this bus and go keep going?
Not against their will, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, that makes sense. Man, what a mess. Thomas, the big talk, man. Come on. Not impressed. Not even going to say it. So we got personal consumption expenses. We got a report on that. That's the Fed's favorite gauge of inflation. It came out this morning. What it shows, inflation is sticky. And this is definitely going to play into the midterm elections. This was, of course, the July report. We'll have, thinking about it, Rhino, before the midterms, we'll get August and September, and that's it. I don't think we'll have October in by the time we go to the polls. So a couple of months remaining to report the gauge of inflation. The markets sort of flat as a result. The Dow down a bit. The NASDAQ pretty much even for the day. The Dow down's 113. It reversed. It was in the green, honestly, in the futures until this data was released. The NASDAQ down 60 points, so not a lot of movement there. Today after the bell, NVIDIA set to report its earnings for the second quarter. Wall Street is projecting $2.09 per share on $92 billion in revenue. That is mind-boggling. They're gonna clock in with a near 100% increase in revenue for the same quarter last year. That just shows you the growth that is occurring in the semiconductor industry, and of course that all being driven by the massive infrastructure build-out to support artificial intelligence. So this is affecting bond markets as well. Treasury yields a little higher today. They fell somewhat yesterday. And this is something that is affecting your money. You can't deny it. Now, oil, you checking that out. It is up today. It's still in the 80s, $82 a barrel that's West Texas Intermediate, by the way. Brent crude up a bit as well. It's now approaching $90 a barrel again. So this is a problem. There's still just lots of I don't want to say misinformation, but conflicting information. I think it's a more accurate way to describe it, talking about the flow of oil through the strait. So the president says this country controls it. Iran says they control it. Really hard to tell. Not sure what the truth is, but certainly there are concerns about the supply of oil, its effect of the price at the pump. This is going to be a huge issue in the midterms, and it would certainly benefit Republicans to see that price drop and for the next couple of inflation reports to be positive, to show that inflation is getting under control and does not continue to rise. Of course, people, you know this, Rhino, they don't pay attention to CPI and PCE reports. They're just looking at the price at the pump and the price of what they buy in the grocery store, period. And they don't really pay a lot of attention to all the political rhetoric around that. I think the challenge for Republicans is, well, see, I'm not happy now, I'm going to change. That's the bottom line of how many people will vote. There's a certain voter base that's going to vote straight ticket no matter what. The challenge for the major parties, of course, is that the number who can go either way, identify as so-called independents, that number continues to grow. And that just basically means I vote for a person as opposed to a party. And that means it's the parties, it's incumbent upon them to make their case for earning a vote. And at this point, the case they're looking for, the voters are looking for, is what are you going to do to drive the price down, the cost of living down? And you're not getting a lot of concrete proposals there. Oh, man. And that's causing problems. On the Democrat side, it's real simple. Their top issue that they are presenting to voters is something they've been presenting for 40 years, and that's Medicare for all. Health care insurance in general continues to increase, spark upwards, and folks don't like that. They're looking for some relief there, and maybe more people are coming around to this idea of, as Rhino likes to say, well, you got insurance. That don't mean you got health care, but you would have arguably less expensive insurance, cheaper insurance. Coming right back.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Draws the crowd and plays so loud, baby, it's the guitar man. Who's gonna steal the show? You know, baby, it's the guitar man. He can make you love, he can make you cry. He will bring you down and he'll get you high. Something keeps him going, miles and miles a day.
Welcome back, everyone. That's David Gates and Bread, Guitar Man. We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Yeah, big announcement yesterday. I did see it, Tim. Was reading quite a bit about it. Tim from Tupelo talking about the big SpaceX. $100 billion. Wow. To build a launch facility in South Central Louisiana, Vermilion Parish. That is part of the Lafayette metropolitan area. If you've spent any time down there, Rhino, it's a bunch of Cajun French folks in the area. My mother from Palmetto, Louisiana, not too far from there, and growing up and being around her family, some of them spoke Cajun French better than they did English. Not unusual, certainly. back in that time period. And she had fairly good command of the dialect. It is a dialect of French, as you know. And it's kind of pleasing to the ear to hear folks engage in that particular language.
Depends on who's speaking it.
Well, you're right. I think you could say that about any language, right? So, but that
I don't know. Even the cutest German girl sounds a bit aggressive speaking
that
German.
is true. Yeah, you're right. German is just kind of harsh. Sounds like you're mad or something. You're being confrontational. Whereas Italian and French, not so much. But yeah, so this is a huge get for the state of Louisiana. I'm trying to find out if Mississippi was even in consideration, and it could, as you know, have something to do with the geographic location.
That's exactly why they chose it, because when you look at the possibility of making space a bigger deal,
yeah,
as far as for commercial transit, commercial shipping, for commercial launch of just about anything you can think of space-related.
Yep.
The safest possible way to do it at large scales is on an eastern seaboard.
Okay.
Or a coastline facing east, just because of the way the planet rotates.
Yeah.
When you take off from an eastward-facing coastline, you're going to fall into water, more than likely. And that has been one of the rare issues for America as far as growing tremendously in space launch capabilities, is our eastern seaboard is pretty well developed because it was the first part of the country settled. So the amount of coastline facing east that's available is limited.
Yeah.
At least at a price that they would be able to pay for the amount of land required.
I think that's the key point there, is the cost of that land, which would make the whole project perhaps economically unviable.
I mean, somewhere like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina would be a great spaceport. And 100 years from now, who knows? The commercial usage of space may have grown to the point where somebody goes, you know what? We don't need as much beach space for people going to the beach. We could put a spaceport right there and make a whole lot of money. But right now, they're making way more money having people show up to the beach.
Yeah. 10,000 jobs, 3,000 direct new jobs over the next 10 years, 8,100 indirect jobs. That is according to the fact sheet posted by the governor of the state of Louisiana, Governor Landry. So Elon Musk says that we've been researching this for 7 years. 7 years. Also said that this facility, this property, it's a former Exxon property, by the way, will support, this blew me away, thousands of launches annually. Thousands. This is exciting. I mean...
And that's what I was talking about, the scale.
Yeah,
like
okay.
You can take off from other points on the globe, but the risk calculations and the window for launch are just the margin of error is so much smaller and so much more difficult, making it so much more cost prohibitive.
So the governor, by the way, is somewhat being criticized because he signed bills exempting some projects in this industry, the aerospace industry in Louisiana, from public review and making unauthorized entry into a spaceport a felony. Interesting. And, of course, they offered some financial incentives to aerospace manufacturers, but I'm just trying to imagine what kind of property taxes a $100 billion piece of property is going to pay, an investment like that, even with a discount. That's going to be massive, massive. So huge benefit certainly for the area and the entire state as a result. So, but 7 years, I had no idea. They've been working on this thing. But it's not surprising. The AWS project in Madison the conversation around that got started in early 2019. It wasn't announced till 2024.
I mean, you hear about some of the hoops they had to jump through to get the go-ahead for their Starbase in Texas, where they literally had to, kidnap marine wildlife and test whether or not they were going to be impacted by the shock waves of a launch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can see why it took years.
So it's correct. Now, the company's also entering the semiconductor industry as well. They're partnering with SpaceX and Tesla. They are partnering with Intel. They also announced they plan to build a massive AI chip factory in Grimes County, Texas. And this is something that the state of Mississippi, I think, should capitalize on, that this infrastructure build-out, somebody's got to make all the infrastructure that goes in those big buildings. And there is a massive manufacturing opportunity. In fact, it is because of that construction, talking about of the data center stuff, that's absolutely driving the manufacturing industry in this country as well. Hiring is resumed in the manufacturing industry after hiring paused or there were net reductions of jobs. So we're seeing a surge in investment in manufacturing, particularly around semiconductors, factories, and others that make both the physical and the IT infrastructure. John Deere says it's got a very rosy outlook for making its construction equipment that's used, obviously, in the building of these facilities. So this is driving our economy and certainly our GDP. But this whole space industry, to me, is just fascinating. And Elon Musk is quite the inventor. $100 billion spaceport. Congratulations to Louisiana for landing that massive project. And that, of course, as you point out, is likely a big factor is just the physical location of it. Not surprised. The FDA has approved a new pancreatic cancer drug that is expected to, shall we say, usher in a kind of a new era of treatment. Revolution Medicines. That's the company's name. First to attack genetic cause of pancreatic cancer, which is very lethal, as you know. And I can't pronounce the name of the drug, Rhino. It's Daraxonrasib, something like that. Going to be sold under the brand name Rasonque? Not sure. Rasonque. Not sure how that's pronounced. But this is interesting. Been going through clinical trials and just got approval. So a medical oncologist, Dr. Andrew Coe, he specializes in these types of cancers at the University of California, said it will be transformative in the way we treat pancreas cancer. It's the biggest development we've had in pancreas cancer in decades. So this is good news. This is a deadly disease. As you know, I suspect everybody tuned in to us knows someone who directly or knows someone who knows someone that has sadly lost their lives to this extremely deadly disease that once detected, usually so late, it takes a person down in a short period of time. We got some election results to get to as well on the other side of the break. The state of South Carolina and the state of Alaska conducted primaries yesterday. Coming right back.
Now it's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Packing my suitcase, writing a tear-stained goodbye note, saying so long to a love gone wrong
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So there were some recent analyses performed by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget concerning the Social Security program. This is fascinating. It's something we talked about on the show, Rhino, especially with respect to Medicare. And that is that I know folks say, well, I paid in. This is my money. Therefore, I'm entitled to receive it out. You're right. You are, based on the contract between you and the government, essentially, for the program. You pay in. You're paying for the right to receive benefits out once you qualify for benefits. The financial challenge is that the amount we pay in does not cover the amount we take out. And so that some new studies have been done. It's been a while since this calculation has been performed to determine exactly how the benefits stack up versus the amount paid in. So scheduled benefits are now projected to be about 133% of the taxes for those who are retiring, that they paid in, who are retiring this decade, looking at it on a net present value basis. Benefits will be about 265% as just the worker's share. So, of course, you pay in, your employer pays in. So the program costs over the next 75 years are projected to total about 135% of future taxes. That's why the thing's going broke. On a nominal basis, that basically means you're not considering inflation through a time period. A typical retiree's scheduled benefits will be almost 4 times as large as total taxes paid, more than 7 times as large as what the worker paid. Man, so the ratio of benefits to taxes, of course, that can vary with pretty wild swing just by person. Overall, the scheduled benefits are projected to be at least as large as taxes paid for all income quintiles retiring this decade. Yeah, so this is, I think this is kind of sobering news from the perspective that the government has got to act to preserve the integrity, the financial integrity of the program, and to avoid it defaulting on its payment obligations. It's easy to say. The question is, what exactly do we do? And there are various approaches and various proposals, mainly from the Democrats, is to end the cap, meaning we want people who make more than a certain amount of money, once they have exceeded the current threshold for Social Security, which I think is about $184,000 a year. You don't pay Social Security taxes on any earnings over that. You would just continue to pay. However, you don't get any more benefits out, even though you're paying a whole lot more in. You're essentially paying for the benefits of everybody else at that point. That would help, but it doesn't come close to solving the unfunded problem. So a median wage worker who retires in 27 can expect about $730,000 in benefits based on actuarial estimates of their life expectancy and the amount they would receive out, compared to less than $200,000 paid in taxes by them and their employer. That's why it doesn't work. So a typical retiree's scheduled benefits will total 3.7 times the taxes they paid in, with benefits exceeding taxes after 6 years of retirement benefits. Wow. So the benefits significantly far exceed the amount being paid in. And I just don't see much action on the part of our Congress to address it. Same is true with respect to the public employees retirement system. I've seen Commissioner Andy Gibson, a candidate for governor, say, I'm going to fix that day one, and I got a plan for it. Not exactly sure what that plan is, but according to the actuaries, the people that do that for a living, you need $200 million a year for many years to shore up the public employees retirement system or to increase the employer contribution significantly, like about 7 percentage points. And that, of course, falls on the taxpayers to cover. So essentially, you're putting more burden on the taxpayers. If you don't cut benefits, you're putting more burden on the taxpayers, no matter what. Fox News SuperTalk News is now coming your way. After that, it's Representative Robert Johnson, the minority leader in the Mississippi House. Stay with us. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
All right, we're pleased to welcome now Representative Robert Johnson. He serves Mississippi's District 94, also serves as the minority leader in the Mississippi House of Representatives. Representative Johnson, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Gerard. Always a pleasure.
You bet. So give us an update from from around your district. What are you hearing from your constituents? What are their concerns, and what are they expressing to you that they'd like to see some improvement on?
They'd like to see everybody working better together, and people are less concerned about partisan issues and more concerned about their everyday way of life. That includes affordability. That's used, pejoratively, but they, the price of groceries, what they have to pay for food, what they have to pay for gas. They're going to work every day. They want to be able to balance that. And, I think the thing that I hear most is that there's so much volatility. They like to, it's hard to plan. They don't know how things are going to go. They don't know how much things are going to cost. They keep changing. And so they just like us to do a better job of nailing down just how we make things happen.
Yeah, so is there anything in particular that you think that the state of Mississippi could do from a legislative, policy, regulatory, rules perspective that would address these concerns?
Well, I'll give you an example. I mean, one of our biggest concerns for a community that has less than 20,000 people, for instance, in Adams County, we still have a hospital, an emergency room. We have some specialists. But what I hear in other places in the district is they'd like to see the state fill that gap where we don't have healthcare providers, whether that be to incentivize people to come to rural areas. But people want health care. People want doctors. They want doctors that are accessible. And so, we had, I think was a good effort in the concept of it, the rural transformation program. But the promises from the federal government have not come through in terms of supporting that program. The governor and the legislature had a good idea about making sure that we provided money to rural communities to do that. So we're doing all we can. But it's just like everything else. We are a federal funding state in terms of we rely on it incredibly. Yeah. And so when they turn the faucet off, it hurts us. And it's hard for us to develop plans. We're ready to do our part, but we can't. They keep changing from day to day. Just like on the beef prices. I mean, we are a state full of agricultural. We got a big agricultural community. Cattle. I grew up on a cattle farm. We raised cattle for most of my life. And the idea that your answer to the problems that they're having in the beef industry is to import more foreign beef, that's just, that hurts what these cattle farmers are trying to do here in Mississippi. They're doing all they can to build their herds back. They had a big problem with the drought. The beef futures were down last year. They continue to be down this year. They're trying to climb their way back, and then you drop this bomb on them where, I don't have to buy the United States beef. I'm going to buy this foreign beef. So it's hard for Mississippians to plan when the federal government is so volatile. Okay,
so you of course serve in the state House of Representatives, and so I'm just more curious on what actions, if any, the state could take to kind of soothe this pain that you're hearing from your constituents. Anything on your radar that you might be proposing?
Well, normally what we'd be able to do, because we'd have the resources, is to fill in that gap with state surplus money. But right now we need that money because we embarked on this idea of shrinking government. So we cut taxes and we cut services, and so normally we'd be able to jump in and provide some help. But right now we're not in a position to do that. Now we have to restructure ourselves and figure out how we're going to run things based on this new tax reform deal that we got working on. So, I mean, if that's the direction the state wants to go in, that's where we're headed. What is my solution? Repeal the tax cut, put money back in the state coffers, make sure you can take care of the services and the projects that need to be funded, and let that revenue generate new jobs, new opportunities, and new support for the state of Mississippi.
So, Representative Johnson, any particular services specifically that we are not able to provide because of our financial condition, or that you think we could provide if we had more money coming in? What would that be?
The most obvious is health care. I mean, what would be the most gracious thing that the state could do than to go into poor communities, which is the Public Health Act that was passed in 1968 recognized that the most important thing you can do for a community, even if no matter how poor they are, is to provide health care and keep a healthy working populace going. And the best thing we could do for the state of Mississippi, we have done a tremendous job in workforce training. We got people all over the state, even in our poorest areas, have been trained, ready to go to work. But, you don't have child care for people who don't have a grandmother or an aunt to keep their kids. You don't have, if they suffer from all the health outcomes that we have in the state of Mississippi, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. You don't have anywhere where they can go and get those treated so they can go to work every day. The biggest thing we could do is what we began to start working on is providing an environment where people have health care available to them and they're healthy enough to go to work. That's what we need to do. And, that's health care. But the other problem is there are a lot of areas you don't even have food sources. They call them food deserts. It sounds, theatrical to say it that way, but you literally don't have a place where people can just go buy groceries. And so we need to work on the things that are the foundations of communities. And everybody knows that. We talk about it, but we got to figure out a way to make that happen. And I think that the leadership in the House and the Senate, the Republican Lieutenant Governor and the Republican Speaker are beginning to understand how important those issues are, no matter where you live. And we can make those things work for us.
Okay, so what specific policies would you propose to address the health care issue that you just discussed?
Well, the first thing I would have done, I continue, it's like a broken record, I would have expanded Medicaid. And people say expanded Medicaid like it sounds like some terrible idea, but you essentially are taking, Mississippi takes, we take more federal money per capita than any state in the union. And so to say no to healthcare money makes no sense to me. That money is still available. And so we should be doing all we can to make sure that we provide that we embrace that money and take it into the state of Mississippi and do what we can to make sure that we bolster our healthcare systems throughout the state. But in terms of the state of Mississippi, we don't have the amount of money that we need to do that by ourselves, but we certainly could be in a position to provide the matching money to make that happen. And look, everybody looks at this as, oh, you're just handing out. No, you're not. You're not handing out money. Every industry in this country recognizes and they actualize it by action. They provide health care within their own companies to make sure people come to work every day. It says it does them no good to have a person that needs health care and they could provide it for them and they can't come to work. They need them at work. Some of our biggest industries in the state, Northrop Grumman, they're called something else now, but they have, not only do they have people who have health insurance, but they make sure they have a clinic on site so people can get treated and go right back to work. A healthy workforce is the foundation of any state, any community. And I don't think there's a better investment that we can make than that. We've already made the educational investment. We've made the workforce training investment. Let's make sure we keep people going and going to work. And the reality is a lot of these people that are looking for jobs and going to work, they are single parent families. And so they need child care. If you do those things, that is an investment that makes a return to you 3-to-1.
So we got a break right here. Can you hang with us and keep talking?
Sure.
All right. We got Representative Robert Johnson on the line. He's the minority leader in the Mississippi House of Representatives. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
In life,
interrupt this program. Gerard Gibert.
Here we go. This is huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Standing in the rain with his head hung low. Couldn't get a ticket. It was a sold-out show. Heard the roar of the crowd. He could picture the scene.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We are visiting with Representative Robert Johnson, serves in the Mississippi House, representing District 94, and also as the minority leader. So, Representative Johnson, it sounds like that you once again are supporting the idea of Mississippi participating in the Medicaid expansion aspect of the Affordable Care Act. That's something that was created as part of that. Originally, as you know, Medicaid, I should say. Medicaid, as you know, originally designed to provide health insurance for the blind, disabled, impoverished, elderly, low-income elderly, children, and pregnant mothers. The expansion, of course, would cover the able-bodied, so-called able-bodied adult population whose income is below 138% of the federal poverty level. That's about $21,000 for an individual a year. So Mississippi, one of 10 states that has not expanded. You know the governor opposes it. The speaker did get a bill through your chamber a couple of years ago, went to the Senate, didn't get very far. It did include work requirements. The idea then was to request a waiver from the federal government to implement those work requirements. But now that's law. That was enacted into law under the Trump administration last July, in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as it is called. Do you think there's an appetite for that in the House, in the Senate?
Gerard, it's instant money. I mean, look, all I'm thinking about is how do we fix this lack of doctors in the Delta, one pediatrician to 4,000 people? How do we fix that? How do we fix the fact that there are counties that don't have an emergency room in a hospital, or some counties don't even have a hospital? How do we fix that? And you got $1 billion out there sitting there saying, come get me. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do it no matter what you call the program? If you put that, not only does it give you a healthy working population, but it's an instant influx into your economy. It simply it works. It works across the board. Healthy populations, healthy working populations are productive populations, are economic drivers in a community. Why would we do that? And look, I've heard you with some caveats talk about how we could help healthcare, and some of that, half of that you could apply based on the money that we would get from this program. But speaking of which, we got this whole bushel full of people running for governor. I thought you were going to run for governor.
No, I haven't made such a decision.
We need a new perspective in there.
I understand.
We need somebody with a fresh look. And look, I would welcome it.
Well, so I'm gonna do something that Rhino and I have to give credit to Rhino. He came up with this idea. It requires second order thinking, and we discussed that a lot. Okay. So I understand what you're saying, that we could pull down $1 billion from the federal government, and then the state's portion would be 150 to 200 million. Because as you know, it is a matching program. But so I'm going to play the second order thinking game. You're well aware that we just crossed the $40 trillion of debt mark, and that we're generating hold on a second. We're generating $2 trillion of deficits a year. And so my concern is that that's what I'm talking about. But you're talking about accessing this $1 billion, which is about right, what we get from the federal government. And you're right in that we rely on the federal government in terms of the dollars we get per capita and the dollars we get per dollar we send to Washington, highest in the country. It's been that way for decades. And it's because we're the poorest state in the country. So the point I'm trying to make, though, Representative Johnson, is that I get it. This money's out there, and we could go access it, pull it down. But that's how we got $40 trillion in debt. That's exactly right. Because all the states say, send me all this money, federal government. And then you wake up and say, now we keep doing that without concern for how much is coming in. And now we got $40 trillion in debt and $2 trillion deficits.
You started out asking me about the state of Mississippi.
I did.
I usually come on this program. All you want to talk about is federal government spending, and that's fine. So they're spending it. So the minute they stop spending it in Texas and California and Arkansas and New York, and fine, we can take it back. But we're the poorest state in the union. Now we're going to get on our high and say we don't want $1 billion when everybody else is getting $8 and $10 billion. Give me my $1 billion, cut the rest of them, because we even though we take more federal money per capita than anybody else, we still don't have the impact that anybody else has had. And one of 11 states, and we're the poorest state, and we're going to say no. All I'm saying is, if everybody else is taking the money and having a healthy workforce, we need to do it too, because we need it more than anybody else. Okay. And so look, but this is the other thing. You talk about the money we're spending in the $1 trillion debt. We're spending $25 billion a month on a war that we're losing. Well, nobody's concerned about that.
I understand.
We're losing the war against I
understand.
$25 billion.
So I'm going to tell you how.
And so now everybody's going to be concerned about the fact that we're making people healthy. That makes no sense.
Well,
it makes no sense.
But do you not at least acknowledge that the alternative, potentially, if we don't denuclearize Iran, is that they start attacking
them, they were shut down, and Trump in his vanity, he had to restructure and do his own deal.
Okay,
it was stupid. It was just stupid. and what did he end up with?
Okay.
Nothing.
I get it.
The cost of grocery, the Strait of Hormuz, gas prices, all those things are tied to bad decisions.
I'm
keep watching it.
Okay.
It's just crazy.
I'm trying to relate this. You're right. I'm trying to relate this to the state of Mississippi. So this debt and this just saying, hey, we got free federal money out there. Let's pull it down. That creates the deficits and the debt that causes inflation. That's what makes stuff unaffordable. It's the deficits and the debt that are driving that.
We're folding ourselves into something that they create. Look, no, it didn't. You know what made it unaffordable? Spending hundreds of billions of dollars with Boeing, saving Chrysler from going out of business, all the support we give. You know, people look at the automobile industry and think, oh, it's great, we're doing wonderful. They wouldn't exist without the federal government buying vehicles that they don't need. The fleet service is what keeps everything open. Everybody looks at poor people have less of an impact on the federal budget than anybody. You know who had the biggest impact? Manufacturing. That's fine. They create jobs. But please, don't get on a high horse and tell me that the reason we're in debt because of a bunch of poor people walking around.
I didn't say that.
10 cents on a dollar.
But you can't.
Well, you're suggesting. You're suggesting that we're taking free money. But nobody ever complained when we gave free money to all of these corporations that we were trying to save because
it pales in comparison. It pales in comparison, though. It pales in comparison. The Medicaid program at the federal level, the Medicaid program is $620 billion a year, and it's total of about $1.2 trillion.
It provides health care for those workers who are going to those plants.
I'm just trying to compare that.
The program that we had in there already.
By the way,
it's for working people.
I hear you. I didn't agree with the bailouts, by the way.
Let me ask you this. People always say that. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
What happens to disabled and elderly people if we don't provide health care for them? What do you suggest they do?
I'm not making any suggestions. I'm just pointing out that we ain't got enough money coming in to cover what's going out. That's what I'm saying. And let's
stop giving it. Let's stop giving it to Israel. Let's stop giving it to all of these people all over the world that we give it to.
I'm for that. I'm for that. It's $40 billion a year. We have a $2 trillion deficit. We're $40 billion a year is what we average in foreign aid. And I'm not saying we should keep doing that. Let's get rid of that. But we have we need to be talking in terms of trillions. Trillions is how you fix this problem.
Look, you started this conversation asking me about the state of Mississippi.
That's right.
My answer was, take the federal money and let's keep people healthy.
Okay.
Then you turned it into a $40 trillion Mississippi. If the only people you gave money to was Mississippi, it would be a speck.
I agree. So what would you think about?
So we're not the problem.
What would you think about, say, ending the federal Medicaid program and just letting the states just do that as they see fit, create some sort of health care insurance safety?
Come on, Gerard.
I'm asking it.
Let's end it after we get. Let's end it after we get the $16 billion we forfeited the last 16 years, and then we keep that money, and then we'll see what we can do with it and make something happen.
Okay.
But now you want us to look.
I'm just asking your opinion.
Anybody on the Gulf Coast, anybody in Tornado Alley, whether or not they want to just rely on Mississippi emergency management.
Okay.
We need FEMA. So, the government said, do it on your own.
We got a break. Look, if you hang on, we keep talking. We got a break. You good? Are you good? Can you stay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. We got Representative Robert Johnson coming right back.
I need one more cup of coffee.
Okay.
From Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
I remember doing the time war, drinking those moments when.
We're back with you with Representative Robert Johnson, House Minority Leader in the state of Mississippi. So, Representative Johnson, I think we beat up the health care issue a lot.
Yeah,
I think your position is we should expand Medicaid in the state, and you believe that would benefit the state. What about the food deserts? What should the state that you talked about, what should the state do there?
I don't really know it takes money. I don't know what the answer is. And it's like everything is part of a fabric. You'd have grocery stores if you had more people working And the question is the chicken or the egg. If you built the grocery stores and improved the health care, would more people move into those areas? Some people believe those areas are just dying and there's not a lot of anything you can do about it. Yeah. But there are people who still live there. I don't believe that. I believe, look, one of the things I love about the state of Mississippi, that it is a vast, rural, beautiful state. I don't think small towns are dead. I don't think they ought to die. I think people, there are a lot of people who would love to live in small towns, but they want to be able to, buy a house or have a certain level of income. And you do that by creating opportunities in industry. Now, I criticized the governor last year because he had a industrial grant program where he was providing grants for people in areas and communities to create industrial parks or industrial sites where it could attract industry. And he had disproportionately not funded any of those or many of those in the Delta. And this year he has really upped the ante on those and done more to make sure those areas are provided that kind of support. And I think those kind of things are important. You start there, and maybe if you create something that people will come and provide 50 or 60 jobs that ends up being a multiplier because families and other people, extensions of that particular industry, then you create, there's a market for a grocery store. But the main problem with some of those areas we have food deserts is that there's nobody to, there's not enough income to make sure that it sustains the opening or keeping those places open. So the first thing we got to do is create those jobs and opportunities. We did it with workforce. We have to continue to do it by focusing on creating opportunities where we have industrial sites and trying to attract industry and improving the infrastructure in those areas. I just saw what they're doing, a $500 million improvement in I-20 and I-55 in the central Mississippi area. Those kind of things I think are extremely important.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So let's talk about something that maybe is a little bit wonkier just to get your take on, and that's the public employees retirement system, which is, as you know, I think
I don't want to talk about that. I do not want to talk about it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, what do you say about it? I've said it over and over. I'm just joking when I say
yeah. Well, what do you said over and over?
What I've said over and over is everybody brags about, we've cut over 2,500 state employee jobs in the last 5 or 6 years. Well, how the hell you think you're going to keep a public employees retirement system open if nobody's paying into it? And the fallacy is you're not cutting. When you cut those jobs, you're not cutting out the actual services or what they're providing. You're privatizing them. And those people are no longer in the system. So the state is still spending the same money or more money on those programs you privatize, but nobody's paying into the retirement system. Stop cutting state employees. Re-employ those, provide those services. Why do we have so many private prisons? They're doing a worse job than we did when we ran clearly government-run Department of Corrections. Put those people back into the system. Child support. Why are we paying somebody to do something that amounts to getting on a phone call, filing a contempt order, or filing an order of child support with the Chancery Court, and you show up and do? We don't need to pay to privatize that. And the same people that are working for the private company are the same people who are working for the state. And so when you cut 2,500 people out who were paying into the system, you don't have enough people paying into the system. And this is not just me talking. If you talk to the executive director of the retirement system, it's not the only reason they're down, but it is at least one of the top 3 reasons that they're down. And that's what we need. That's what we can do. That's what we can start. We can't control the markets. We can't control how futures are trading or how mutual funds are working, but we can't control how many people are paying into the system.
I see. So I actually did that research. It's fairly level. The number of people paying in several years ago, the number of people paying in. What's up is the number of people drawing out is up quite a bit.
Yeah, I know. And so how do you you don't want it level. You want more people paying in.
Well, so what you're saying is let's go hire more government employees and increase the expense to the taxpayers.
What I'm saying, we have the expense. We're paying private companies to do what we pay public employees to do. Get rid of the private companies and put those people back to work for the state. It won't cost us any more money, and they're paying into our system. We're literally providing those services to a private company to whose benefit? the private companies. But you're not helping the state of Mississippi. That's just somebody's buddy that you thought it would be better for them to make the money than for you to just provide a level funding system and those people paying into the system. The government is not here to make a profit for other people, but clearly that's what we're doing instead of doing what we ought to do and make sure we concentrate on providing good service.
Okay.
That's what we ought to do.
I got you. So, yeah, I mean, in 2007, we had 162,000 active members. I'm looking at official PERS data. Today, we have 154,000. So, actually, that was that was in 2016. We had 154,000. So, we got less than that now. Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at that information now. So that number does continue to trend downward, while the number of those receiving benefits, signing up for retirement, continues to go in the other direction. So, your solution is, but that won't fix it, right? That certainly would mean more money's coming in, but it won't come close to fixing it.
It will stem the loss. We have a $25 billion problem.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a $15 billion problem than a $25 billion problem.
I understand.
That's all. Look, it's going to take more than that, but you're asking what could we do? That's something we could do. We can't, I don't know if they need to hire better money managers. I don't know. But that part of it, we control.
Yeah. Well, I hear you. But, of course, as you know, the actual return on investments has been pretty good. The PERS program's done good. We just have a system.
It's always done good.
Yeah. We actually rank pretty high among the states in terms of our ROI on our fund. The big problem.
Is this a national problem, too, though?
It is. Well, not all of them. Ours is the fourth least solvent. Of the 50 states, we've been kind of at that condition for quite some time. There's some that are really good just because of the structure and the design. It's just different what they pay out, what you pay in, and that's just worked out better. So, I know that is something that you're actually starting to see. At least one candidate for governor, Andy Gibson, is a Republican, is addressed. He says he can fix it day one. Has he told you what his plan is? Just curious. He hasn't told me.
No. Okay. No. And look, I don't want to dismiss Andy Gibson. I mean, he says a lot of things. Yeah. And he seems he seems a little goofy to me. I served with him. But one thing he is not, he is a smart person. He's not dumb. Yeah. If he says he has an idea, I may not agree with it, but I've never seen him do anything where it's not well thought out. So I take him at his word. I probably won't like what he proposes to do to fix it, but I guarantee you he has a plan. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I'm just curious as to what that might look like. Okay. I would be. It's scarier because he is smart. And some of the things he comes up with, scare the hell out of me. So I don't know what this plan is. I'd feel better if he was a dummy, but he's not. So we'll see where it goes. I got you. That's why we need more people. That's why we need more people like you getting in that Republican primary. Oh, I got you. Well, don't know that's in the cards. I mean that you said some of the more intelligent things, whether I agree with you or not, about all of these issues, and so. I think it may be because you are looking from the outside, looking in, and everybody else is so insular. We don't see some of the things that other people see. We need more of that. I understand. Well, I appreciate that. All I can say is you never know where life leads, but at this point, I'm pretty entrenched in what I'm doing and enjoying my retirement, semi-retirement, I guess is what I'd call it. Well, since you mentioned what you're doing, I will make a selfless plug. I've started a podcast called Y'all Ain't Right. Yeah. And so if you want to hear, at some point I'd like to have you be a guest and love to join you. What you're doing to me here. Yeah. I'd love to join you. I appreciate that invitation. Yeah. And as always, we appreciate you coming on the program, Representative Robert Johnson. Enjoy the discussion. Thanks for coming on, Representative. Thank you, Gerard. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I'd like to say I'm going to miss Lance. He was one of my favorite people. Absolutely. Appreciate you saying that. Sure was. Representative Robert Johnson has been our guest, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Rally Up a Mississippi. That matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, we are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. We appreciate Representative Robert Johnson for joining us today on Middays. It's Andrea Sanders, Commissioner of Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services, in the next segment at 12:05. So I'm not sure I just got a whole lot of what I would consider concrete proposals to address some of those issues, and I know that kind of the default from Democrats, certainly in the state, to address the health care conundrum, and it is a problem, and it is evolving as a top issue in America. It's talking about the cost of health insurance. That's definitely spiking, and it is squeezing household budgets. And so that's one of the reasons, as you know, Rhino, the Democrats have really elevated this proposal for Medicare for all to be their top issue. You look at all the Democrat socialists. It's not just a Democrat socialist. I'm not sure there's a Democrat in the Congress that would not vote for a Medicare for all bill. In fact, there's at least an ex-Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard, who serves in the administration, who on the stage as a presidential candidate on the Democrat for the Democrat Party, she was among the entire lot that raised their hand when the question was asked by the moderator, would you support Medicare for all? That's why I've always been a little skeptical of her, honestly.
Remember, she's no longer a part of the administration.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Former part of the administration, right. But selected by a Republican president to serve for Homeland Security, right? And was that what she was, or what was Christie Nolan? Both of them.
Tulsi Gabbard was Director of National Intelligence, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So I conflated that with Homeland Security with Christie Nolan. But nonetheless, she was one of those who raised their hands. I've gone back to look at that clip. I think CNN hosted it. This was in the 16 cycle, I believe. And there was a dozen or so. How many of you would support Medicare for all? And every dang one of them raised their hand. It was a show of hands. And then the next question was, as I recall, Rhino, and I may not be recollecting this exactly, was would you support abolition of the commercial health care industry? You remember that coming up. Because you remember Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren were candidates. Absolutely. Let's just kill the whole industry. But you can't ignore the fact that people are concerned about the high cost of health care and more specifically health insurance that just every year goes up and up and up. And
does society have the memory of a goldfish? Because we've already had to endure and are still enduring the consequences of the last time Daddy Government decided it was going to do something about health care.
Correct. Which is
Obamacare was supposed to fix all this, and it just made everything 10 times worse. And we expect the government to come in and magically be right the second time?
Yeah, agree. And in fact, Mike McCormick, who was on with us Monday from Mississippi Farm Bureau, we didn't get a chance to talk about it. We were focused on the beef tariff issue. But he pointed out that, they created a new health care program that are non-ACA compliant plans. And, there is kind of a loophole, if you call it that, or an exception where the plan doesn't meet the minimum coverage standards and some of the other provisions. Therefore, it's lower cost, a little bit more risk, and you just have to decide, can I live with that risk? And a lot of people are fine with that, right? So, but he pointed out that that line of business for them is doing quite well. Of course, everybody's looking to save money on health insurance, no doubt. And as you pointed out a million times, I don't want to pay for something I'm never going to use or need. And as you also know, though, that kind of the miracle of insurance, of course, is a whole bunch of people paying in for stuff that they hope they never need that ends up paying for the people who do need it. That's your car insurance is that way. You pay for it and pay for it and pay for it. You hope you never have to file a claim. What you're actually paying for the people that do. That's how it works. That's the model. So it's the so-called mutual benefit of that. But nonetheless, I didn't get anything concrete other than what you get from the state is let's expand Medicaid. And from the federal government, let's implement Medicare for all. In other words, more government is what they're basically proposing. And in the Medicare for all, the piece that they ignore on that is as you point out so accurately and eloquently, is that's just health insurance. Because the minute you pass that, you think we got a shortage of health care providers now? You start reimbursing them at Medicare rates, they're finding something else to do. And our ability to recruit young talent into the field of medicine goes down dramatically. Is that not what the other countries who have implemented that have experienced? Why you wait months to get a simple X-ray?
It's also why you have first-generation immigrant doctors here.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Large numbers.
Coming right back with Commissioner Sanders. Stay with us.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays. We are live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We are pleased to welcome now Andrea Sanders. She is the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. Commissioner, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Likewise. Thank you, Gerard.
All right, so give us an update from Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. This is one of those agencies that I often describe as one I wish we didn't need, honestly.
I would love to work myself out of a job, but unfortunately that's probably not ever going to happen. But we have really been focused on making systemic reforms internally. One of our big focuses when I got to the agency was addressing the workforce and staffing shortages. It was a highlight of the Olivia Y lawsuit that was filed back in 2004 that, the allegations were that caseworkers had 75 kids on a caseload. When I got to the agency in 2020, around 50% of our caseworkers met the standard that the state agreed to in Olivia Y. And today, 93% of our caseworkers meet the Olivia Y standard. More importantly, 98% of our caseworkers meet what is a reasonable standard nationally in the industry. So we've really focused on making sure that no one has a dangerously high caseload. And that doesn't mean that we have plenty of staff and we're sitting around kicking our feet up on the desk. We're still 24/7 first responders. We have roughly 3,800 kids in custody right now and 3,000 that we interact with in-home and prevention cases and 2,000 open investigations. So the staffing ratio just means that Mississippi has met what it agreed to meet back in 2016, and that we have reasonable staffing. Of course, as you can imagine, that means I have a lot of young staff. We've had to hire, recruit, retain, but that's been a big accomplishment because I used to call Oklahoma and ask them for advice on how they approach staffing, because every state in the country struggles with staffing and child welfare. And I have a call this afternoon. They're calling me to find out
how you're
what
doing,
we're doing that's continuing to work. So, okay. But that just gives us a opportunity to really double down on training and get those folks to stay with us long enough to have. It takes a lot of experience to really become seasoned at this work. Give us a background on the Olivia White lawsuit. Explain what that's all about, how it affected the agency. That lawsuit was filed in 2004, so it's been around a while. The allegations were that the state had dangerously high caseloads and that it was violating the constitutional rights of children in foster care. The state agreed in 2008 to a settlement, one that had, hundreds of metrics in it. Hundreds is a stretch, but I don't remember what the initial settlement had in it. But the state has agreed to somewhere between 100 and 125 metrics each time it's renewed the settlement agreement. It was renewed again in 2012, slightly different version. Not much changed. In 2016, the state agreed to separate CPS and create a standalone agency that would be a cabinet position under the governor. Yep. And renewed its commitment to numerous other metrics. Caseloads being a really, an important one. There's no magic number that says children are always going to be safe if you have this caseload, but it's pretty fundamental to practice that, you can imagine in a classroom, if a teacher has 50 kids to one teacher, sure, success is not going to happen. Same in our work. So, but in 2016, the state agreed to the last version of the settlement agreement. I have elected during my tenure not to renew or sign on to a slightly different, better or worse agreement. Instead, we worked with the plaintiff's attorneys for the last 5 years and suspended the settlement agreement so we could focus on getting systemic reforms in place, building out new technology systems, getting real data. When I got to the agency, nobody could tell me how many kids were in custody on a given day. So we've got dashboards now that we use on a regular basis to ensure that, each one of those numbers is a child, and we need to ensure that they are paired with a caseworker that has a reasonable load and can give that case the attention it needs. Well, I could speak from personal experience on this. I think I've shared with you before. My wife Julie and I had 2 foster children in our home, and of course we would have to work with caseworkers and a peer, and in the Chancellor's Court as well. And it's incredible the ratio of overworked. I think our caseworker had like 75 children for one worker at the time. Is that situation, has that improved? This Absolutely. Was like 2008 or so time frame. Yeah, so. And that would be during that early phase of the lawsuit. Okay, yeah. And the state had not, it made some progress over time with getting more caseworkers for the number of children, but the solution really turned out to be, it was multi-pronged. Yeah. Not one thing fixed it. Okay. We set up a 9-rung career ladder so that everyone starts at a minimum base salary, and then they've got reasons to improve their education, to get their license, to stay with the agency. So we also worked closely with the institutions of higher learning that have social work schools. Yeah. And we built out a program that I think is just an exceptional model for workforce development. We pay the schools use their existing state dollars to pay scholarships to students who agree to do an internship with CPS. Then those students owe CPS a year of work after that. But more importantly, we're then able to take those state dollars that are being used for the scholarships that the schools already had.
Okay.
And we're able to match it to federal 4E funding at a 75-25 match. So it's also brought in over $6.5 million for those schools to reinvest in their programs, in their curriculum, to provide much more comprehensive training and hands-on training in the school setting before the student ever comes to the agency. So I really credit that program with a lot of the stability we've started to enjoy in the workforce. And I think in the next year and a half, we'll be hiring directly from that pipeline, solely from that pipeline.
Gotcha. So talk about the Home for Every Child initiative. What's that all about?
You know, that's a recognition by the Trump administration's Children's Bureau and Administration for Children and Families that it's important to keep children in home-based environments. And, you know, if you think about it fundamentally, that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Children thrive more in a family setting. And it's a three-pronged approach to make sure that states have a home available for every child that's in custody. So, you know, you want to have more foster homes than you need and give folks an opportunity to take a break. You know, you fostered kids. That was a unique situation where you took in kids that you knew. Well, that's also the ideal for kids to go into either extended family or with someone that they know. Y'all knew these kids from school, I believe. And
that's right.
So they never moved again. And they had a good, stable environment to finish high school and a touch point, a place that, you know, they can go back to when they have things that they need.
Yeah, that's right. We got a break right here, but if you can hang around with us, we can keep talking. You
Happy
good?
to. Sure.
All right. We got Commissioner Andrea Sanders in the Element Well studio. She runs the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. We're taking a break right here. Coming right back. Stay with us.
This program. Gerard Gibert. Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, Rhino, we go from Dolly Parton to Stevie Ray Vaughan. Huh? So that's awesome.
No complaints.
Exactly. So we're talking to Andrea Sanders. She is the commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. So can you share with us, to the extent you can, of course, without disclosing any confidential information? I think this is – I've always thought that the work that this agency does, it doesn't get a lot of public exposure for obvious reasons. You're dealing with children. Mm-hmm. But I've seen you speak before to my civic club, my Rotary Club, and I will never forget. It was, I want to say, the week after Thanksgiving, and you had had to respond to a situation on Thanksgiving evening. You personally got involved in it. You're shaking your head. I'm sure you remember that. And I was just thinking about, you know, this isn't a job or an agency that is punching the clock 9 to 5. That's for sure. And secondly, just kind of sad that these things are happening to children who don't have any control over this, didn't do anything necessarily to cause whatever is putting them in harm's way and causing abuse.
Right.
This is what you guys run into day in and day out.
It is, and the kids who have suffered repeat trauma, detachment at an early age, there's a predictable line of behavior that, kids act out their emotions, and, so Mississippi has had a history of keeping kids in custody longer than a lot of states, and the side effect of that is that custody is not a great place to grow up. It is, back to that Home for Every Child initiative.
Yeah,
kids need to be in a permanent home setting. Custody is necessary sometimes, and when it is, they need to be there for the amount of time they need to be in custody for their safety. But, when you reminded me of the Thanksgiving incident, it reminded me, I was just going through my phone looking at some videos, and I took a video one night at 2 a.m. in the front of our state office down on North State Street, and I had to go in because we had a teenager who had been with us since she was 12. And by the time she was 16 or 17, she really, she was aggressive, violent. Treatment facilities would not keep her. We end up with social workers in the middle of the night trying to manage a situation. I got to say, Capitol Police came and were extremely helpful in trying to help us de-escalate her. But I looked around as we were resolving the situation, and I realized I had an assistant deputy commissioner from the whole Tri-County central area there. I had 3 supervisors and the caseworker that had all come to support the caseworker. And the video I took was them standing around after things were winding down at, between 2 and 3 a.m. And one of them was saying, well, I think I won't go to bed tonight because I have an appointment in the morning to go see so-and-so at 9 o'clock. Now, this was a Friday evening, so that 9 o'clock appointment was on a Saturday. And I asked her about that, and she said, well, the parents work, and so that's the only time that really works for them. And I thought, my gosh, up all night, going to stay awake on a Saturday to go visit a family because that's what the job requires.
Yeah, that really is totally incredible and shows certainly dedication there. But you said at the top of the discussion, 3,500 in your custody right now?
We've got about 3,800.
3,800.
And 30.
So where are they? Where are they in your custody?
They are all across the state. Many are in foster homes. Some are in. We're really focusing on licensing more specific homes to the child, kind of like you and your wife did, or with relatives that are known to the child and can keep them in the community that is familiar to them. And so I would say 50-50 of the kids who are in foster homes are with relative placements or fictive kin. And probably 50% are with traditional foster homes. We have about 200 at any given time that have special needs, or either in treatment or, they've become very difficult to keep in a stable placement. I mentioned the complex trauma, the acting out. I am really excited to tell you about a long-term project we invested in, started back in 2022, working to get funding for a private-public partnership where we could bring a real state-of-the-art trauma-focused center to the state of Mississippi, something that was really lacking in the mental health care continuum for teens. And October 5th, Canopy will cut the ribbon on this new trauma center. It's located over behind Millsaps on West Street on their campus there.
Yeah.
And we've had to send kids out of state, for this type of treatment in the past. They're going to have 33% of their beds are reserved for children that, that either come through the system or may need to come through the system. But they'll be serving the type of kid I talked about that, had been in multiple placements, been kicked out of acute care treatment in Mississippi over and over. And our goal is to get them the real complex trauma treatment that they need. The place is set up in cottages. They've got a garden to work in. It's really designed for that longer term healing that needs to take place. And then our goal is to have step down levels of care there on campus, and then to pair them with therapeutic foster parents so that if they don't have family, they know where they're going when they leave the facility.
I got you. To what extent does your agency have to work with law enforcement, the justice systems, when you come across a situation where there's a crime involved against a child like that?
Hand in hand. And that gets a little confusing sometimes because people think, well, a child was involved in that's CPS. When a crime's involved, it's both of us.
Sure.
But when it's a serious crime, law enforcement really needs to be first on the scene, and we need to follow them in the door or come and help with the children that are there. But, you need chain of custody of evidence. You need to build a case that can stand up in court. And so for those reasons, it is essential that we have close relationships with law enforcement. This bill caused the new law that passed for youth court reform. There's been a lot of misinformation and a little bit of confusion out there about who can talk to who. We have put out multiple guidance and statement to our employees, ensuring that nothing has changed about communicating with law enforcement, communicating with children's advocacy centers. These are all partners that have to be a part of those forensic cases.
Well, I figured that would be the case because you do come across situations, right, where unfortunately some crimes have been committed where the minor child is the victim.
Right. When there's felony child abuse, often it happens in the context of a domestic violence episode. We had a bad case 3 or 4 years ago where my caseworker was first on the scene, and she was there as dad was murdering mom in front of 3 children. And that was it's a dangerous situation for the caseworker. Law enforcement was close behind, so it worked out.
Well, I assume that if they feel like they're maybe going into a situation that's potentially unsafe, that they will engage law enforcement to accompany them?
Yes, and we've really tried to work on those relationships. As you know, we have local law enforcement, and building those relationships where we can count on each other is part of the key to making that successful. Yeah.
Real quick before you go, tell me something positive that you guys are working on real quick. Got about 30 seconds.
Recruiting foster parents. We've opened up a new campaign called Room for One More. Check it out on its web. It has its own landing page, and it is we've had 250 new applications in the last 6 weeks.
Oh, awesome.
So very exciting.
Yeah, that's good. Andrea Sanders, Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services, has been our guest. Thanks for coming in, Andrew.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Half an hour of middays remains. Stay with us.
From the Seabird, Mississippi, Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
And this is how the message ran. Sign
Tim Curry, English actor. Man, what a voice he had, right, in the roles he played. Passed away. You probably heard it by now. Passed away. He, too, was 80 years old, right?
That's correct.
So? Yeah, so he and Dolly Parton.
He had a much more public battle with his health in recent memory, confined to a wheelchair for, if I'm not mistaken, the better part of the last decade.
Okay. I hadn't followed it too closely, but certainly different than the rather abrupt news of Dolly Parton's passing. He, of course, created the Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? I remember that when I was high school, I think, middle school, somewhere in that time frame.
75, I think, is when the movie came out. I want to say the musical it was based on was a couple years before that, so 73?
Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah, so that's exactly right. That's when I was freshman in high school. And what I remember, Rhino, is that they would play it at the old DeVille Cinema here in Jackson on I-55 North. It's where you see the Steinmart now. DeVille Plaza is the name of the shopping center, and kind of tucked back in a little notch in the shopping center front was a theater, DeVille Cinema, and they'd play it like every Saturday. It was a cult following, as you recall, and we'd pack it in there, and I maybe went 2 or 3 times just to hang out with my friends, you know, but the people all knew the words. That was the deal, right? You sit through the movie and you recite all the script. Everybody knew it. It was fascinating.
But did you go to the showings that involved props?
I can't say that I did. What was that all about?
Oh, well, I mean, people, you got to bring rice or confetti to throw at the screen when the newlyweds exit the church.
Yes, they did do that. They did have the rice in the theater, throwing the screen.
Got to have the newspaper to cover your head in the rainstorm.
Right. Oh, man.
Which means you got to have the water pistols to simulate the rain.
You know.
Got to have the big rubber gloves and the flashlight.
His physical appearance, his face in particular, it was like made for that, wasn't it? You can't, I mean, he just looks like a villain. Really good. So, man, sorry to report that he has passed away.
Yeah, Rocky Horror Picture Show may be his most well-known work, but the guy was prolific and a great actor. I mean, he really got into every role he played, from the butler in Clue to the cardinal, the bad guy in Disney's Three Musketeers.
Yeah, that's right.
To Pennywise the clown in the movie It. Yep. He was the clown. People forget about that in the first iteration of It. And even singing with Muppets for Muppet Treasure Island. I mean, I remember seeing an interview with him where he talked about how he did all of his singing for Muppets Treasure Island live on set, and that's just not done. Yeah. It wasn't done when they did the movie then, let alone nowadays.
That's true. And his voice, of course, did lots of voiceovers as well, and he was really talented at that. Even as a youngster, I'll have to say, I was always fascinated with voices and voiceovers. I don't know why. Just accents, something I always kind of marveled at, try to guess. You know, there's people that are like professionals at that like, can tell you, I'm exaggerating a little bit, like the street you grew up on. But
depending on which accent. I mean, if you're talking about a British accent, you get into some of the London accents, yeah, you can pretty much determine which street that stopped at.
And I would remember, I can't remember the television programs, but there would be someone who had that skill, and they'd bring people out and they'd talk and they'd guess, you know, like compete on that. And this is amazing how they could pick that out. Well, I think that sounds like such and such county in Kentucky or something like that. Just incredible. But that always fascinated me.
There's a comedian who might be right up your alley because he's also an avid drummer named Fred Armisen.
Yeah.
One of his hidden talents is he can recognize and reproduce, or this is his claim.
Yeah.
I've never seen him wrong. He can recognize or reproduce every North American accent.
That's incredible because there's a gazillion of them. And that's what makes our country so neat, right? It's all the same language. And you're right, to some extent in England as well. We're just bigger and we're more of a melting pot, which influenced the way we speak the English language to a great extent. You know, and you know there's a what we term as a Southern influence on English lyricists, vocalists, but it's really how we came from them, and so that's why there's a connection.
Yeah, the thickest Southern accent is the closest linguistically to how middle and early modern English were pronounced.
Yeah, exactly. So if you think about how when it particularly the
like in modern English, the Shakespearean line "Let's slip the dogs of war" is stated like that. Let's slip the dogs of war. You go back to when it was written, because of the vowel shift, it was closer to "Let's sleep the dogs of war." So you can hear that there's more of an accent to it, and when you expand that out over time, the Southern accent is closest linguistically to that old English accent.
Well, I think that would explain that during the British invasion, when we had all the British-based rock groups, something that I always caught was that, you know, when they sing, you don't detect the English-type brogue accent, right? And it sounds more American and more Southern American. Pronunciation, for example, of the letter I, which that's a letter that you can clearly tell if it's someone that's from the South or not, I, the way we say it. And then the English rock stars of the era and their vocalists. Think about the Beatles. I mean, they pronounce it like we do here, as opposed to the more northern version, the I, you know, which is almost sounds kind of arrogant to me. But
if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, look into the accent that was used by Hollywood in the quote-unquote golden age of Hollywood in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah.
That transatlantic accent.
Okay.
Where they were literally, and you still have part of it alive today in how news anchors talk.
Okay.
It still survived in that space. But you go back and you watch all the old-timey movies. I say old-timey, they're old-timey to me. The old movies where they have a funny accent.
Yeah.
It's because you were well-to-do in that society if you affected that transatlantic accent. So it was still American, but it had the pomposity of the British accent as well. So you were more highfalutin if you had that accent.
Okay. Well, that's probably why that was so popular.
Oh, yeah.
In that era. You know, something else I've observed in not just movies, but even television programs, the 50s and 60s, how frequently they use the word suppose. We don't ever say that anymore, do we?
Mm-mm.
But it's very common in the scripts. It just I like to watch MeTV, and Perry Mason is one of my favorites. Comes on 10:30 at night, kind of how I'd veg out and wind down. And I like to check the dates, you know, when those episodes were made. And it's about the time I was born or before or a couple of years after. But suppose it's just used regularly during that time frame. Like that was more just common in our communications. We don't say that. We're more what if, I guess, is probably the way to state that, as opposed to suppose. Interesting. Digressing a bit here,
but
folks.
I mean that can be really, you can point to either the evolution of the English language, which it evolves every generation.
Sure.
And you can point to the evolution of the understanding of film and TV and script writing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Where while there was a specific formula in that day and age in Hollywood and TV, being formulaic was more of the B movies. The B movies followed the formula. The top end did their own thing. And it hasn't become until recent memory where now the big movies are the ones they apply the formula to, and they let the indie films do whatever they want.
Okay. So it's kind of a template of the day, which is likely why most of the scripts were similar in the way they structured the language and the sentences. Yeah, makes total sense. I don't know. Just crazy things like that. I don't know why I pick up on that. It's like, they sure do say the word suppose a lot. Nobody uses that anymore. We got another segment coming back. We got to tell you about Meta, a ruling. They're going to pay some money. And Flock, the camera guys, as well. They're changing stuff. Stay with us.
Hey, y'all. This is
covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, final segment. So, something you and I have talked about, Rhino, is mainly when the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, also more commonly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it contains provisions that changes eligibility for Medicaid and SNAP and ACA benefits, subsidies specifically. And I think this is one of those things where our immigration stuff is so dang confusing, so convoluted. There are legal immigrants, believe it or not, and there are illegal immigrants. And legal immigrants aren't necessarily citizens. They're just in the country legally. Those have been eligible, legal immigrants, for those benefits since their inception, for Medicaid, for SNAP, food stamps. But the One Big Beautiful Bill Act said no longer are they eligible, except Haitian and Cuban immigrants, and we've explained there. And so a legal immigrant, basically you're here as an asylee. You're seeking asylum from your home country. You're a refugee, and there's our government defines what that is, or a parolee, and our government defines that. But the asylee is the big one. And that's people who come in here, as Rhino and I have said, they're trying to kill me at home. Okay, have you a card, help yourself. Literally. And at that point, they are availed to all the various programs, just as a citizen is. So the State Department yesterday announced they're going to revoke tourist business visas for those who claimed asylum. Well, you and I have said before, bunch of that's just bogus. Because first, they're not truly escaping an urgently dire situation where their life literally is at risk, that the government of their country is hunting them down to assassinate them. That's number one. And number two, whenever some degree of stability is achieved in those nations, they never go back. They're just here forever. And so I'm happy to see this. That's the
problem is a lot of them actually do go back for vacation.
That is true, to visit the family and take money with them while they're at it. So our government says that they're going to identify these people. They think it's 175, 200,000 maybe. They said this month they had revoked that many, 175,000, since the president took office, but they're going to step up these actions, and they expect that to be a lot more. So I'm sure old Thomas has got to be happy about that. The other thing that's going on is this whole controversy over the Flock surveillance cameras. The Flock CEO has announced that they're making some really, really sweeping changes to their systems. First and foremost, shorter retention, 30 days to 7 days is a pretty big deal. What's happened is, while there are some benefits, certainly from a fighting crime perspective, folks are concerned about these cameras being used to illegally conduct searches. But, Rhino, the bigger problem is, unfortunate, it's a small sliver of corrupt law enforcement officers that are using them for personal gain and in a way that they should not be using. They're not trying to solve crimes. They're trying to track people down like someone cheating on their spouse or something like that. Well, that's just wrong. That's a problem.
Somewhere between 40 and 50 different reports from different places of law enforcement officers stalking wives, girlfriends, and exes.
Completely wrong. So 30-7 will certainly, I think, mitigate some of that. And the other thing is a mandatory search audit tool. That starts January 1, 2027. All law enforcement officer clients must opt in to an automated audit system that flags artificial abnormal behavior. And you would be able to tell that some sort of AI embedded tool could immediately say, wait a second, this guy's only looking at the recordings we have of his spouse or her spouse, as the case may be. That's wrong. And they would say, you got to go check this out. So we'll see where that goes. And then the other thing that happened that we didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday is the Supreme Court's ruling on mail-in voting. And this is a huge victory for the Trump administration. And this basically orders the post office, or allows the ordering of the post office, to vet roles that are supposed to be provided by them, by the states. Now, some 20-something states are suing over this. So I'm not sure how far this goes from a legal perspective. But they're supposed to provide, here's who we're going to send our ballots to, and the post office is supposed to check those against our rolls and say, yeah, that's a legal citizen, and they live in your state, and therefore we can forward the mail. Otherwise, we ain't going to mail it for you. That's what it says. That's what the order basically says. So we'll see what happens, but this is a big victory for the Trump administration to kind of get control of that. Out of here today, back tomorrow. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.